And I can't figure out, why is there a gag order in this case that Wendy can't talk about her circumstances? Why is the judge doing it?
That aside,
there is something
that's even
way, way bigger.
He said, nobody that I deal with, nobody that I know is gonna do anything with y'all. No business at all.
Hollywood's in one of those hush-hush phases right now, where the loudest stories aren't blasting across front pages. They're sliding through late-night texts, tucked deep inside legal paperwork and shared by insiders who finally hit their limit and won't keep quiet anymore. At the center of this storm isn't some random name or low-level player. It's Sean Diddy Combs, a heavyweight who shaped the whole music era, set trends, and threw parties people still talk about in whispers. For years, his private world was treated like a locked room, totally off limits, until that door cracked open. This moment isn't only about federal indictments or the trafficking allegations that ended with him in custody. It's about a question that's been hanging in the air since 2018, a question folks kept dodging like it was too risky to say out loud. A growing circle of people, including those closest to her, are done letting it slide. What really happened to Kim Porter? The official word was pneumonia, but the unofficial talk tells a messier story. And lately, it's clear those quiet explanations are the ones people remember and repeat.
When I get back to New York City, if she's on the radio station, he's talking to a radio executive.
It all kicked off with a book, and not just any random drop. This was a 59-page memoir called Kim's Lost Words, allegedly written by Porter herself before she passed and released on Amazon in September 2024. The thing shot straight up the charts almost overnight, and people noticed fast. That same exact week, Diddy was hit with federal indictments tied to racketeering and trafficking allegations. Nobody missed that timing, not for a second. The publisher, a man named Chris Todd, says he received a flash drive from a celebrity source buried deep inside Diddy's circle and claims the memoir lays out years of alleged abuse, secret meetings with powerful figures, and one haunting line that reads, "He got me." That quote is straight from the text, not rumors. What makes it hit harder is how it reads like a warning, a woman sounding like she knew what was coming. Then there's the coroner situation, or what people say never fully surfaced. Ed Winter, the LA County medical examiner who handled Porter's case, reportedly found toxins in her system before being suddenly removed from the investigation. Winter wasn't some rookie either. He worked high-profile cases involving Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston, and he never got the chance to explain what he found before he passed away. Coincidence, maybe. But when stories stack up like this, it starts feeling less random and more like red flags.
He broke him, let's say allegedly, but it was told by people in her camp that he broke Kim's nose on a yacht. So Cassie's story is Kim's story. Cassie's book is Kim's book.
And then there's Al B. Sure, Porter's ex and the father of her oldest son, Quincy. He didn't sugarcoat anything. In multiple Instagram posts, he called her passing a tragic incident and openly accused Diddy of silencing her to bury details that could have exposed his private world. There were the alleged parties, the substance-fueled scenes, and a level of control that people say went way beyond a normal relationship. According to Shore, Porter's personal devices vanished after her passing, including a computer that allegedly held drafts of her memoir. He's also claimed he received threats just for speaking up, and that's a detail that hits different when you look at how many people in Diddy's circle face serious fallout after crossing him. Then there's Shore's own health nightmare, a coma, a liver transplant, and a near-death experience he's hinted was connected to his push for the truth. That's not just random chaos. That starts looking like a pattern people can't ignore anymore. At the same time, the legal pressure keeps stacking up. Diddy's federal indictment isn't only about trafficking allegations, it points to an alleged system, a long-running network of influence that may have let certain behavior slide for decades. Cases like this don't move unless investigators feel confident they've got something solid to chase.
Very ominous signs for him, although interestingly, we haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic evidence.
Federal sources familiar with the probe say they're digging into financial trails, NDAs, and possible links to other high-profile figures who may have been involved or quietly shut down. This is about a man who allegedly operated untouchable for years, throwing over-the-top parties and running a tight inner circle built on loyalty and fear. That kind of power doesn't just vanish, it cracks, it peels back, and right now, it's coming apart fast. And just when it seems like it can't get messier, Wendy Williams steps in. The queen of bold opinions, the woman known for calling out fake behavior, broke her silence in a rare Daily Mail interview. And this time, she didn't hold back at all. "It's about time," Wendy Williams said when news broke of Diddy's arrest, pointing straight to the 2016 hotel surveillance footage showing him assaulting Cassie Ventura. That video, released by CNN in May 2024, gave the public its first raw look at what was allegedly happening behind closed doors. But here's the wild part. Wendy had been ringing that alarm long before the footage ever surfaced.
When she put out those pictures of the dude pulling his pants down, and it looked like some gay act that was going on, he got on the phone.
Way back in the 1990s, Wendy was fired from Hot 97 after making claims about Diddy's alleged behavior that many people didn't want aired out. At the time, those rumors followed her, and she's since suggested his team used industry power to threaten and sideline her. Now her health is rapidly declining, with diagnoses of aphasia and frontotemporal dementia, conditions that have taken her voice in the most painful way possible. The decline has been brutal and fast. Her son, Kevin Jr., has spoken publicly about what he calls financial exploitation during her guardianship, with court filings alleging her estate dropped from $55 million to zero in just 2 years. That timing raises eyebrows, especially when you remember Wendy was one of the first mainstream voices willing to challenge Diddy openly. Now she can't speak for herself, and when you line everything up, it starts to feel heavy. Kim Porter's alleged memoir drops, describing abuse and ending with a chilling final text. The coroner who reportedly found toxins is removed and later passes away. Al B. Shore nearly dies while pushing for answers. And Wendy Williams, who spent decades calling out what she saw as Diddy's hypocrisy, is suddenly silenced by failing health. Now Wendy Williams is effectively incapacitated, her finances allegedly drained, her voice taken, while Diddy sits in federal custody with his empire cracking in real time. Allies are backing away fast. Even figures once tied closely to him are creating distance, including the notorious B.I.G.'s mother, Valletta Wallace. Mary J. Blige, once a trusted collaborator, has gone completely quiet. And Jay-Z, who's faced his own public scrutiny during this saga, is keeping a noticeable distance. The industry mood has shifted hard. Doors are closing, phones are going silent, and the public is finally asking the question nobody wanted to touch before. What else could be hiding under the surface? The alleged memoir doesn't stop at Diddy either. It points fingers toward other major names, including Usher and Mary J. Blige, names with serious influence and legacy.
They were referred to me as Wild King Nights. And what a Wild King Night was when him and a guest would go to a hotel room or be at his home, his bedroom, and they would have intimate gatherings. I would have to go and prep that hotel room, which consisted of baby oil Astroglide.
If even a small part of these claims holds weight, this isn't just one powerful figure falling. It paints a picture of a culture built on protection, silence, and looking the other way. A system where truth was treated like a threat and accountability was optional. That's why this moment feels so volatile. This isn't only about Diddy, it's about how long this allegedly went on, how many people stayed quiet, and what it took to finally force it into the open. But there's one more layer that makes this even colder. The memoir isn't only about alleged abuse, it's about leverage. Porter allegedly wrote that Diddy used private encounters, documented and recorded as a way to control people. That crosses from scandal into potential criminal territory. And if federal investigators have even a piece of that evidence, this case could crack wide open. The kind of situation that brings RICO-level consequences, the kind that don't just end careers, they change everything. These kinds of cases don't just bruise reputations, they erase legacies, the kind that lock people away for decades and rewrite history in real time. And that's exactly where we are now, stuck with more questions than answers. But one truth is impossible to dodge anymore. The walls are closing in.
Tick tock, the clock is ticking on Diddy because on Friday he finds out what his sentence is going to be, but today he found out what prosecutors would like that sentence to be, and it is vastly different from what his attorneys have suggested to the judge. Prosecutors want him to do 11 years, just over 11 years.
People who stayed quiet for years are suddenly speaking up. Paper trails are surfacing, Documents are moving, and the legal system is finally shifting gears. Diddy is running out of safe corners, fast. The real issue isn't even about guilt anymore. It's about how wide this fallout spreads and who else gets pulled into it. Because history shows us something every time. The first domino is never the last. And in this story, that first domino was Kim Porter. Everything else is still unfolding. Here's the thing about power. It doesn't just protect you, it insulates you. And when you're someone like Diddy, that insulation isn't just cash or lawyers, it's a whole ecosystem of people who all have something to lose if the truth comes out. Kim Porter's passing wasn't only a personal tragedy. It allegedly became a threat to that entire system. And if the claims are accurate, the effort to contain that threat didn't end with her. It extended to anyone who might have known too much, anyone who could back up her claims, anyone tempted to speak out. That's not some wild theory. That's how powerful machines operate. You don't build an empire like that without learning how to control the narrative. And control, in this case, meant making sure certain stories never reached daylight. Now let's talk about the money, because that's where the real leverage lies.
He was responsible for Diddy's day-to-day life, so he is able to provide a lot of information about what that life was like. He goes into detail on extensive drug use.
Diddy's net worth has been estimated at over $900 million, a massive fortune built not just off music, but endorsements, beverage deals, and a carefully polished image of non-stop success. But money like that doesn't only buy luxury, it buys silence, and people inside the industry say that part mattered most. Sources close to the business claim Diddy's team relied on a tight network of fixers, lawyers, and PR strategists whose job went way beyond image control. Their role was allegedly to stop uncomfortable stories before they ever saw daylight. We're talking about NDAs so locked down that former associates say they couldn't even hint at what they witnessed without risking lawsuits or serious consequences. And it wasn't limited to personal behavior. The allegations tied to Kim Porter's memoir, if accurate, suggest that major entertainment figures were pulled into his orbit, whether they wanted to be there or not. That kind of information doesn't just cause embarrassment. It can erase careers overnight. That's why when Porter's memoir surfaced, it didn't just threaten Diddy, it rattled an entire industry built on protection and silence. The memoir allegedly names names, including Usher and Mary J. Blige, artists whose careers grew while connected to Diddy's world. If even a small portion of those claims is verified, this won't stop with one fall from power. It could trigger a chain reaction, a domino effect hitting some of the most influential figures in music. That's why the stakes feel sky high, why resistance has been so aggressive, and why people who spoke out, like Al B. Sure, say they faced intense pressure and retaliation for breaking the silence. Al B. Sure hasn't just spoken up about Kim Porter's passing, he's been very clear about the risks of crossing Diddy. In his Instagram posts, he didn't only demand an investigation, he warned that people across the industry knew exactly what happened and stayed quiet to protect themselves. That's not just a plea for justice. That sounds like someone admitting the whole setup is rigged. And if Sure's claims about his own health scare are real, the story turns even darker. A coma, a liver transplant, and a near fatal stretch that he's hinted was connected to his search for the truth. If that's accurate, then we're not just talking about warnings or intimidation, we're talking about real consequences for speaking up. But here's how systems like this work. They only survive as long as silence holds. And right now, that silence is cracking loudly.
There is a partial verdict in the Diddy case after 2 days. The jury has reached unanimous decisions on 4 of the 5 counts.
The problem is that 5th count means that we don't get to find out what the verdicts are on the other 4 because they are hung up on...
The federal indictment against Diddy isn't just about the charges listed on paper. It's about the doors those charges could blow wide open. Legal experts say that if prosecutors can show a pattern of coercion, money, and influence being used to suppress people and evidence, this case could stretch far beyond one individual. That's where things get serious. We're talking about potential RICO-level investigations, possible conspiracies involving lawyers, managers, and even other artists who may have looked the other way to protect themselves. That kind of exposure doesn't stay contained. And if it reaches that point, the impact won't just be legal, it'll shake the culture. Because this isn't only about Diddy, it's about an industry that protected its own for decades, no matter the cost. We've seen this pattern before, with the Weinstein scandal, the R. Kelly trial, and the downfall of powerful figures who believed they were untouchable. What makes this situation hit different is the sheer scale of Diddy's reach. This isn't just about one powerful figure, it's about a culture that allegedly allowed it, benefited from it, and looked the other way because speaking up felt too risky. Now that federal investigators are digging deeper and more witnesses are reportedly stepping forward, the spotlight is getting harder to dodge. The real question isn't only what Diddy may have done, it's who helped him, who covered things up, and who stayed quiet when they could have spoken out. That's what makes stories like this so devastating. Not just the actions of one man, but the silence of everyone around him. And we can't ignore the media's role in all this.
Let's talk about the filth that's starting to come out in the early days of the Diddy trial. This, of course, is P. Diddy. Surprise, surprise, he's a creep. Surprise, surprise, he's done horrible things.
For years, many outlets handled Diddy with soft gloves, highlighting his success, flashy parties, and larger-than-life image, while avoiding uncomfortable questions. The few voices that did push back, like Wendy Williams, paid a heavy price. Her firing from Hot 97 wasn't just about one controversial moment, it sent a clear warning to everyone else. Cross the line and there will be consequences. Now, with her health declining and her finances allegedly drained, it's hard for people not to notice the timing. The same system that protected Diddy for years is the same system that muted his critics. The power that built his empire is the power that helped bury uncomfortable truths. But here's the twist. That power is slipping fast. The indictments, the alleged memoir, and the growing list of accusers all point to one thing. The insulation that once kept everything hidden is cracking, and once that protection breaks, there's no putting it back together. And when that moment hits, the fall isn't just quick, it's catastrophic. There's one last piece to this puzzle, and it's easily the most disturbing. If Kim Porter's passing wasn't only a tragedy, but an alleged attempt to silence her, then the question gets darker fast. Who else could be at risk? The memoir is said to include names, dates, and specific details that could pull others into the spotlight. And if extreme steps were allegedly taken to keep Porter quiet, what would stop the same tactics from being used on anyone else who knows too much? That's not just wild guessing, it looks like a pattern to many watching closely. Look at the coroner who reportedly found toxins in Porter's system. Look at Al B. Shore's serious health scares. Look at Wendy Williams and her rapid decline. Coincidences maybe, but when stories stack this deep, coincidences start feeling more like warnings. History tells us something uncomfortable. In scandals like this, the people who know the most are often the first ones pushed out of the picture. And while the legal system moves slow and methodical, the court of public opinion moves at lightning speed.
It's probably leaning towards guilt. Now, on the racketeering, I agree with you that the predicate acts may be found, but that's not all they need. There's an ultimate question. The first question on the jury verdict form is, do you find him guilty or not guilty of racketeering? Before you even get to the predicate acts, which you only get to if you find guilt, they could just be hung up on that question and say, this guy's not Tony Soprano. I am not convinced that I even want to find guilt on the act.
Right now, that tide is turning fast. Social media is flooded with theories, resurfaced clips, and old interviews as people connect dots that were always there but never openly discussed. The conversation is everywhere. The feds may still be building their case, but the public has already started forming its judgment. And in an era where accountability spreads at the speed of a tweet, that's a dangerous position for someone like Diddy to be in. Once the narrative flips, once public trust is gone, no amount of money, connections, or image control can put the genie back in the bottle. This story is no longer containable. It's growing louder by the day. And once again, we're left with more questions than answers. But one truth is impossible to ignore. The walls are closing in. Long-time silence is breaking. Documents are surfacing. The legal system is moving. And Diddy is running out of places to hide. The real question isn't whether he's guilty anymore. It's how far the fallout spreads and who else gets pulled into it. Because if history has taught us anything, it's this. The first domino is never the last. And in this story, that first domino was Kim Porter. What comes next is still unfolding right in front of us. But here's what we can't ignore. This was never just about one man falling from power. It's about a system that's now exposed, a system that protected powerful people, silenced vulnerable voices, and treated the truth like a threat. And once a system like that starts cracking, there's no telling how far the damage reaches. So we're watching closely, we're listening carefully, and we're waiting for the next shoe to drop. Because in a story this big, there's always another one coming down hard. Now it's your turn. After everything that's surfaced, everything that's been pieced together, there's one question that won't go away. If this is what we know right now, what else do you think is still being hidden? Drop your theories in the comments. Like this video if you want more deep dives like this. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Share this with someone who needs to see it. Because in a scandal this deep, the truth is never just one person's secret, it belongs to everyone. Stay sharp, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next one. Because trust this, it's far from over.